We're honored to have Chief McKenzie from Rossville join us this morning, and I've asked the Chief to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the July 28, 2014 meeting of the Shawnee County Board of Commissioners. My name is Bob Archer. I currently serve as chair and represent District 3, and I have the privilege of serving with Commissioner Kevin Cook, who represents District 2, and Commissioner Shelley Bueller, who represents District 1. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. First item, please.
First item is item 2, unfinished business. Number 1, consider approval of request from Thomas A. Schmar for a waiver of the requirement that access to a lot on Southwest Auburn Road be across the frontage of said lot.
Yes, sir. Or property owner, if he's available also.
He's here.
Okay.
Vern Jarbo here on behalf of the property owner, Tom Schmar. We were here last week, and you had asked that Mr. Beagle be here to comment from the planning department's perspective, I guess. We didn't get all the way into this last time, but I did talk with an engineer about what it would cost just to figure out what it would cost, more or less. And I was told that the study, in order to make a design that would bridge the gap, so to speak, from Auburn Road up onto the property, would be a $3,000 to $8,000 adventure, because you'd have to just figure out how much water is coming through and design either a culvert, a box culvert, or a bridge, depending upon the results. And that, in his opinion, that study alone would be a $3,000 to $8,000 investment. And the minimum cost for whatever structure would likely be in the $50,000 price range, which is why we filed the request to use the easement, because spending that kind of money to get access to a lot, I mean, we'd be, I don't know what the lot's worth, but arguably we'd be spending as much money as the lot's worth just to get to it when we have a perfectly good easement. And when this requirement was originally passed years ago, and I wasn't a participant in it, so I don't want to claim more knowledge than I have, but I believe that the whole problem that we were trying to solve was we had some lots that fronted on a road, but they were trying to get access through an easement to adjoining roads, not to the road they fronted on, but some other road. And that creates all kinds of problems, especially with 911, not knowing where to go. In this instance, the easement is immediately adjacent to the property line, so we're not going off cross country. The easement in this case is across a dam that provides access to a property that's further to the back. And if anything, the property further to the back is an example of bad planning, because it's one of those panhandle deals where it had 60 foot of frontage on Auburn Road and then goes, I don't know, a quarter mile back before you get to the main lot. So the easement is across the dam. Actually, several years ago, there was a piece of litigation between the previous property owner of the back piece and Dr. Schmar, which was ultimately resolved. John Hamilton represented the property owner to the back, whose name was Mark Wittenberg, and we ultimately resolved the maintenance issue of how to take care of this easement, and so far there have been no further problems with that with the new owner. Although the new owner, I think, Dr. Schmar, did you tell me? Oh, there you are. You're too close. Did you tell me they've only been there a year and a half?
About a year, yeah.
Okay. So we don't have a lot of experience with them yet, but that's the situation.
Let me make sure I understand. You said that the engineering study would be $38,000?
No, 3 to 8.
3 to 8, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So we'd have to spend $3,000 to $8,000 just to figure out how much it would cost, or what kind of structure, if you will,
Right.
would be needed to do this, because you have to start with basically a drainage report to see how much water's coming through from upstream. And I guess one other thing I didn't mention, yeah, and you can see this from the aerial, one of the great benefits of Dr. Schmarr's lot is the trees that are out there adjoining the pond, which gives a great deal of privacy to his lot. And if you start building something out there, you'd destroy that privacy feature, but you'd have to take out a bunch of trees, depending on what the engineer says is going to be built. Okay?
Thank you, Mr.
So we think it's unreasonable to require that for lots of reasons.
I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Smart, do you have any comments to make?
Just that the value of the lot is now about $34,000. Now the value of the lot's about $34,000. It was bought at $42,500, so it's actually been degraded in value since then.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
that's
thank
really
you.
all I have.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming. Are there any questions or comments? Either Commissioner?
Questions or comments from, I know we had a memo from the planning department.
Right.
Barry, do you have any additional comments?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity of the Commission to respond to this particular provision. The frontage and access requirement is a requirement of the Shawnee County zoning regulations, which is administered by the Shawnee County Planning Department. And I think it's important that you realize and understand the purpose behind this provision to begin with, and then what the have a proper understanding of what the waiver requirement is about as well. I think Mr. Jarboe has done a pretty good job of summarizing, the conditions of the property to current date. We don't dispute the fact that there is a pond which extends across the frontage of this parcel. At issue, though, is the question of, well, is this property denied access, reasonable access, to Auburn Road by virtue of its frontage and by virtue of the pond that extends across the frontage? To put this within proper context, the property is zoned RR1, the Residential Reserve District, and it's the expectation of all parcels that share that classification that if they want to construct a home, it must be on parcels a minimum of 3 acres in size with 200 feet of frontage upon a public improved roadway. Given those requirements, the Dr. Schmarr's property is 5.9 acres in size. It has 200 feet of frontage, and by this standard, excuse me, it is a compliant parcel today. Secondly, the frontage and access requirement indicates that every lot must have frontage and access on a public improved roadway, and that the driveway serving the property must extend between its frontage and the house, and the driveway cannot extend beyond the boundaries of the parcel. In looking at this particular property's frontage, number one, it is fronting on Southwest Auburn Road, which is an improved roadway. It is maintained by Shawnee County, and therefore it satisfies the frontage requirement of that no lot be created unless it has frontage on a public improved roadway. So we come back to the question of the frontage and access requirement. Did it always read this way? And in fact, no, it did not. Prior to 2006, the frontage and requirement of the zoning regulation said that no lot shall be created nor improved unless it has frontage on either a public improved street or a private drive approved as part of a planned unit development district. Divorced from that, however, was the requirement for access. It was silent on that. And as a result, since it was not specifically stipulated that a parcel's access must be tied to its frontage, it led to any number of irregular lotting situations throughout the unincorporated area. And as Mr. Jarboe indicated, it made emergency access difficult because sometimes a parcel's access was not associated with its frontage, and it left emergency service providers in a quandary of how best to locate the particular parcel when responding to an emergency request. So as a result, an amendment was offered in 2006 which sought to close that gap and tie access to a parcel's required frontage. And that was accomplished with the adoption of H.R. 2006-3, which amended the street frontage and access requirement to also require that no lot be accessed except through its required street frontage with no portion of the driveway extending beyond the boundaries of the parcel. So that eliminated the irregular and dysfunctional lotting systems that we were seeing on a number of occasions throughout the unincorporated area. So it satisfied that problem. Now, as with all regulations contained within the zoning regulations, the frontage and access requirement is to be applied uniformly across all property within Shawnee County. However, it is realized that there will be occasions whereby the strict application of a provision, in this particular case, frontage and access, may cause an undue burden or hardship on the parcel because of a unique condition associated with that property. It is for this reason that Section 2701, the frontage and access provision, contains a mechanism which allows the property owner to seek a waiver to the access requirement. However, it is incumbent upon the applicant to demonstrate and prove that access to the property through its required street frontage could not be achieved. So that is the principal issue which is before you. Not that the waiver request is inappropriate or anything like that, it's just that have we done proper documentation to show and demonstrate that the pond is in and of itself an impediment to access to this property. So the waiver provision clearly states, however, waivers shall be granted only in cases where there is no possibility of obtaining access to the parcel through frontage on a public or private street as required herein. It doesn't talk about a cost-benefit ratio. It doesn't talk about what the financial impact. It just says that it can be demonstrated that access is not feasible to be provided to the subject property. Now, the planning department has indicated we acknowledge the presence of the pond extending across the frontage of this parcel, and it does limit access to this property. The question is at the south end of the pond, are conditions such that it would deter or prevent the possibility of access in a reasonable fashion? I did attempt to contact the Shawnee County Public Works Department to get their assessment of this request. Preliminary assessment I received, even though I do not have it in writing, indicated that it would be possible. Certainly, it would not necessitate, as indicated in Mr. Jarbo's letter, a bridge or anything as substantial as that. But yes, it would require some fill work, and it would require a culvert that would be sized to handle the flow of drainage through that area. Now, what that potential cost is, I do not know. But obviously, that's the assessment that has to be performed here to document, well, okay, how bad is this condition as it is being represented? Now, we recognize that back in 1997, when Dr. Schmar acquired his property, that a perpetual easement was granted across the drive for the adjoining parcel to the north. But again, under the regulations, we cannot utilize private access arrangements any longer since 2006, unless it can be demonstrated and shown that a condition exists for which a waiver should be granted. The planning department believes that an engineer's and surveyor's assessment would legitimize the applicant's claim that there is no possibility of obtaining access to the parcel through frontage on a public street as required. Without such a report, there is no way to substantiate Dr. Schmar's claim that access from Southwest Auburn Road would require the construction of a bridge, and that the cost of such bridge would exceed the value of the property. The applicant has chosen, obviously, to make their case to the commission without submitting such a report. The planning department believes that the only way to honor the frontage and access requirement and satisfy Dr. Schmar's claim that about access and its potential cost is through the assessment of a surveyor or engineer. Absent the documentation that no possibility of access exists, it is the owner's responsibility to take access through their required street frontage. The planning department in this particular case is not trying to be difficult as much as trying to honor the requirements of the zoning regulations, and in particular the frontage and access requirement that otherwise applies uniformly to all other properties within Shawnee County. So with that, I'll conclude my comments.
Mayor,
Yes.
question.
Commissioner.
In what circumstances have we granted a waiver? How many times have we done that, Barry?
Since 2006, I'm not aware that we have granted a waiver, or as circumstances come up. I'd have to go back and check our record, but not within recent time.
Okay.
Commissioner.
Barry, let me just make sure that I understand this correctly. Dr. Schmar has the perpetual easement to his property. There's a road there off of Auburn Road.
There's a driveway.
There's a driveway
Mhm.
that runs directly along with Dr. Schmar's property.
Correct.
Dr. Schmar would be able to use that driveway for access to his property. It would not require any more engineering studies, bridge construction, culvert construction. Why not just use I guess that's ultimately Mr. Jarbo's position is, why not just use the existing roadway instead of having additional costs that are going to tell us what was obvious. It's obvious that there's a large pond, and to construct anything else would be rather cost prohibitive. Why not use the already existing roadway? I guess I don't understand why we would need to have an engineering study to tell us what we already know.
Well, first of all, over the past several months, my office has been in conversation with both Dr. Schmar and Mr. Jarbo, and I outlined to them what I would like to see in order to substantiate their claim that the condition of the pond is such that it would be unreasonable to require that, to require access to Auburn Road directly as opposed to taking advantage of the private driveway. I was denied the ability to receive that information. As a matter of fact, today was the first time that I heard anything about a cost estimate. So again, my objective was to honor the requirement of the regulations that says every lot in Shawnee County has to take access through its required frontage. So the fact that a private driveway and a private easement exists to serve this property doesn't circumvent the requirement that Dr. Schmar's lot must provide its own point of access. So I had requested information to document that the condition associated with the pond was such that it would prevent access to his property. And Mr. Jarbo, on behalf of Dr. Schmar, appealed directly to the county commission without going through my office.
But does it necessarily require to have an engineering study?
Well, otherwise, it's a subjective test. It's a subjective test to take a look at an aerial photograph and say, yeah, okay, that's going to require a bridge, as what was represented in Mr. Jarbo's letter. Now, my conversations with the Public Works Department indicated that bridge, no. And so it comes down to, okay, well, what story are we going to listen to and believe here? What I was trying to do is to take out the subjective and put in the objective and say, okay, well then let's talk dollars and cents. If you're claiming that access is denied based upon the pond and that the pond is preventing access and it's going to require all this cost, okay, then fine, prove it. It's still incumbent upon the property owner to demonstrate that that condition exists. It's the same thing as taking a variance to the Board of Zoning Appeals. There is 5 tests that have to be substantiated in order for a variance to be granted from the terms and conditions of the regulations. Now a waiver does not rise to that level, but nonetheless, it is incumbent upon the applicant to demonstrate that that condition exists. I can take a look at an aerial photograph just as well as anybody else, but I cannot make an assessment by just looking at the aerial photograph, oh, well, that's a deterrent.
Is it inappropriate, for Mr. Jarbo to come directly to the commission? That is within the code and statute that he can come directly to the commission.
Well, as far as I know, this waiver mechanism is a provision of the Shawnee County zoning regulations. And unless something has changed, the Shawnee County zoning regulations are administered by the planning department. And so it's my department's responsibility to represent the regulations as they are currently written, and if there's any deviation from that, I would assume that it would be the responsibility of my department to advise the commission as to what the requirements are of the regulations.
But Mr. Jarbo could come to the commission directly. I mean, that was the question. Is that not legitimate approach?
Well, if it's, ultimately, yes. The question has to come to the county commission for, I was not denying that.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that there is a proper procedure that was discussed, and that procedure, just like anything else, whether it's a conditional use permit, a subdivision plat, a zoning case, anything else, it cycles through the planning department to do its evaluation and to advise you as to what the requirements are of the regulations. Now, from there, the ball is completely in your court.
Okay.
I don't deny that.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Vlock, do you have any thoughts on this issue as Director of Public Works?
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Block, Shawnee County Public Works. When Mr. Beagle indicated he spoke to someone at Public Works Department, it must have been someone else, because it was not me. Okay, and I was not aware of that. Honestly, you want my opinion? When I first heard of this and looked at it, I thought, to me, this was a no-brainer, to be honest with you.
Okay.
did just look at an aerial photograph and thought, oh, that makes sense, because they have the driveway leading up to the road. He has a perpetual easement from a public works standpoint. Having less driveways onto a road, such as Auburn Road, is actually desirable. Although there is an issue with a joint driveway, is sometimes we get into an issue where people have those, and then they have a dispute with their neighbor, and then they pull us into their dispute. But that's typically with no easement, you know. Yeah, anything can be done. If you got all the money in the world, you can do anything you want. But sometimes, I don't know, my personal opinion is, I don't want to, I like to put in a common sense factor, I guess. And I think, looking at it, to me, I thought it just made common sense to, since it had the easement, to allow it. But I don't know, I don't want to speak, you know, Mr. Beagle has his department to run, and I don't want to tell him how to run his department, because I'm not
Exactly.
trying to do that. It's just, that was my opinion.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Any other questions or comments?
Commissioners,
Yeah.
What troubles me is the commission taking an approach to where we're going to bypass the planning commission. And I don't want to open the floodgates to every dispute coming directly to us and bypassing the planning commission, because the planning commission does have a set purpose. It is there to advise us. But at the same time, given the statements of the planning director that he wants to have an engineering study done for what is, by all comments, a fairly no-brainer, is troubling. I don't know if it's appropriate for us to send this matter to the planning commission with specific directions. I think that it is somewhat burdensome to throw engineering costs, planning costs onto Dr. Schmar to use what's already there. But I am reluctant for this commission just to take the action of deciding it, because we are setting a precedent for all matters bypassing the planning department and coming directly to us.
And just so I clarify, and Barry, I'm looking to you, this is not a planning commission decision, it's a staff, planning department, decision, correct? Okay, so it would not go back to the planning commission.
Okay.
Planning issues in my experience are very complicated, and so, you just, it looks like a no-brainer, but there's implications later. There's circumstances later that come up, like Tom said. I had agreed to defer this because I had some concern that it did not go through the planning department. Just as we had very thorough conversation this morning, we needed that. Oftentimes, the planning commission and the director submit things to the commission, and we don't agree, but still, it's been vetted completely through the planning department. Yeah, I hesitate too, because I also know of other circumstances where we will get applications through easements so that those properties do not have access off a public road. And that concerns me later on then with emergency response and those sorts of things, so. This is a tough one. It's a very tough one.
I agree. I think it is a tough one, and I'm going to make a motion to approve the request, and I'll tell you why. I think common sense should always prevail in issues like this, and yeah, we may have others that come up, and we'll have to look at them individually. I mean, that's what we're here for, to make tough decisions. But when it comes to a property owner having to spend up to $8,000, and even our public works director says it's a no-brainer, then I think that's enough evidence for me to make a motion to approve the request as presented.
I'm in a second.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Archer to approve the request, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. 3-0. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 2, under unfinished business, consider approval of resolution number 2014-48, adopting the retailer's sales tax question to be placed on the November 4th, 2014 general election ballot.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jonathan Berzon, Assistant County Counselor. Before you is a resolution that would place a ballot question on the November 4th general election ballot. And I could just read that question if you'd like me to, as it stands in the resolution so that everybody can hear it. The question would read, shall the following be adopted? Shall the 0.5% countywide retailer sales tax be renewed and levied in Shawnee County, Kansas to take effect January 1st, 2017 and expire 15 years after its effective date to provide revenue for, number 1, economic development, number 2, Southwest 6th Avenue, Gage Boulevard to Fairlawn Road, number 3, Southwest 17th, Adams Street to Washburn Avenue, number 4, Southwest 17th Street, McVicker Avenue to Kansas Interstate 470, number 5, Topeka Boulevard, 15th Street to 21st Street, number 6, Southeast California Avenue, 37th Street to 45th Street, number 7, Northeast Seward Avenue, Sumner Street to Forest Avenue, number 8, Southwest Huntoon Street, Gage Boulevard to Harrison Street, number 9, Southwest 12th Street, Gage Boulevard to Kansas Avenue, number 10, Northwest Rochester Road, U.S. Highway 24 to Northwest 50th Street, number 11, Northwest 46th Street, Button Road North to Rochester Road, number 12, Southwest 29th Street, Fairlawn Road to Wanamaker Road, number 13, Southwest 37th Street, Scapa Place to Burlingame Road, number 14, Southeast 37th Street, Kansas Avenue to Adams Street, number 15, County Bridges, number 16, Kansas Expo Center, number 17, Topeka Zoological Park, and number 18, Bikeways Master Plan. And I want to emphasize that this resolution does not impose the sales tax. It merely puts the question on the ballot for the voters to decide in November. You have to answer any questions you might have.
Question for Mr. Vizon?
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yes.
No, if you had something,
Oh.
go ahead and go first.
I see one of the up-and-coming leaders in our community is here, Councilmember Nathan Schmidt. Nathan, did you have any comments that you'd like to make this morning?
No, I'm just here if you guys have any questions about what went on in City Council.
Okay. I don't. I was there, and it was nice and short. Appreciate that.
I was in another one, and it wasn't as short, but that's okay. Welcome.
Luck of the draw.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Commissioners, I know in our original resolution, we had included language that read, including county bridges, including the Northwest Carlson Road Bridge over the Kansas River. And I hope that it's the intent of this body to include that language on this ballot question, including that language in the sales tax question ensures to the residents of Northwest Shawnee County that this bridge will be replaced. And I think placing an emphasis on infrastructure, roads and bridges is critical for this sales tax. It's been critical in the past and it will be in the future. I will make that motion. If I do not get a second, I do have several in the community who would want to speak.
Is there a second?
There is not, but let me explain why. County Bridges does not exclude the Willard Bridge. I think the ballot question language does not exclude it. We're all aware of its priority and its need. We've had numerous presentations and briefings from Public Works, but we also stand resolved in the position that this is a state responsibility and we should continue to press the state for their responsibility to this bridge. When looking at the overall, as to other bridges that are connecting two major highways, in this case, 75 or I-70 and 24 highway, and so I think that's really where we need to look. But this resolution says county bridges. It does not specifically include, nor does it exclude, the Willard Bridge.
So all the more reason to include it, to make sure that voters know exactly. This is a higher dollar bridge, and so it would be transparent to the voters that this is included as part of the project for the next 15 years. And it is not a state bridge. It is a county responsibility. Counties are responsible for their bridges. Last sales tax, we included the Topeka Boulevard Bridge, and it was specifically listed on the ballot. I would encourage public comment at this point if there are those in the audience who would like to speak. I could not support this ballot question if there's not a second on this motion, and putting quality of life over a fracture-critical bridge that impacts the safety of this community, that has a 3,000 to 4,000 vehicle count on it. I cannot do that.
Operationally, Mr. Brazon, would it be possible for us to amend this, and then it would go back to the city council? The elections commissioner basically has told us that Friday is the deadline for language to go on the ballot.
I can't speak for the city's timeline as to
Yeah.
whether they would have time to have another meeting to discuss that change,
Yeah.
but ultimately, the ballot question is decided and put on by the county commissioners. You have the ultimate say in what the ballot question reads.
Okay. Thank you. Is there public comment?
Alan McKenzie, Fire Chief, Shawnee County Fire District 3 in Rossville. As I'm sure you know, the Willard Bridge is right on the edge of the fire district that I represent. There's a lot of traffic there, and we respond to cross that bridge frequently. We have an automatic aid agreement in Willard, so we're first due into that area. And I would encourage you to consider, there was a lot of other really specific items I heard in the question, and I would encourage the commission to specifically name the Willard Bridge. Willard and Dover Fire District helps us a lot, and we help them a lot because it's difficult for us to maintain all the manpower that we need all the time, and we help each other. So I would encourage you to consider that.
Thank you, Chief. Are there others?
Morning, Commissioners. Gary Ross, I serve on the fire board for Valencia, Dover, Willard. I encourage you to consider work on that bridge. Everyone that lives north of the river should be here. The truck traffic, the agricultural traffic, trucks that use the bridge illegally. It continues. It's been a bad bridge for a long time. So far, our solution is to lower the speed limit, which only the people that obey the speed limit follow anyway. And yes, we did enter into a mutual agreement with Rossville for fire protection for Willard, and that bridge, of course, is critical. But everyone north of the river should want this bridge fixed. It's been a bad bridge for a long time. Thank you.
Sir.
Commissioner, my name is Jim Hayes. I live in the Rossville area. I'd just like to endorse everything Commissioner Bueller has said about this issue and add one point. I just recently retired after 29 years as the research director of the Kansas Association of School Boards. And I can tell you that not only is this bridge crucial to the operation of our school district where I live, but there are several other examples up and down the Kansas River where bridges are sort of fundamental to the efficient operation of the school districts. The school districts were created in the 1960s, and in some cases, the school districts operate because there was not a bridge in the 1960s, and in other cases, they operate with the presence of a bridge to facilitate the daily operation. USD 321 includes parts of 4 counties, Potawatomi, Wabunsee, Shawnee, and Jackson. And the majority of the enrollment in the school district attends school in Shawnee County, in the attendance centers that are located in Shawnee County. There's growing enrollment south of the river and buses going across this bridge to the Rossville attendance centers. And I think everybody that's familiar with the situation has in the back of their mind some really horrible tragedy involving a school bus on this bridge, particularly in the wintertime. So I'd urge you to consider the ramifications for the schools in that area of the county and how that would all fit into this question. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others?
I'd like to hear from our Public Works Department.
And I would too. I think there was recently an inspection done of the Willard Bridge. Tom, do we have results from that?
Commissioner's Tom Block with Public Works. No, we have not gotten
Okay.
any feedback from that inspection report. Thing I do want to, again, point out to you, keep in mind, we have about $5 million of identified maintenance work that needs to be done in the nearer term. I don't know how we're going to fund that, but that to me, that'd be throwing good money away for doing something that's not worth really even doing. So I want you to, beware of that, unless you just completely want to close the bridge down. Because, I mean, if you just want to completely close the bridge down, then we wouldn't do any of the maintenance work. But in my opinion, this bridge is critical to a significant portion of this county, the northwest, the west. I know we have kids who live on the south side of the river who would now be required to have basically a 45-mile round trip to get to school and back. And if parents had to drop them off, that'd be twice a day, so they'd be taking 90 miles to get their kids to school. It is an expensive bridge. There's no doubt about it. But there are very few opportunities that are presented to fund a bridge like this, and this is one this may be the only opportunity. Granted, I agree that I think that Carlson Road should be a connecting link because it connects Willard and Rossville to Interstate 70, and as Ed mentioned before, it is about the only road across the entire state of Kansas that is not a connecting link. I don't know why it's not. The reason it may not be might be because of that bridge and its condition. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, let's face it, the Willard Bridge is competing with money for the Expo Center. And that's what we're battling. And my personal opinion, and it's because of my department, I need to advocate for it. I'm going to put infrastructure in above that. And the other thought, the other thinking I had is the Expo Center is a county facility, county-owned facility, but I would say nearly 100% of the benefit goes to the city of Topeka. So my recommendation would be, like we do with economic development, the economic development money comes off the top and it's split 50-50. I think any monies that go into the Expo Center should come off the top also, because even though the county benefits by upgrading its facility that it owns, the city benefits because it gets all the benefit from all the attractions and the people and the restaurants and hotels. And so that would be, if we did that, you said we put in 40 or 45 million into the Expo Center, and you cut it in half, it comes off the top, then we make way for funds for the Willard Bridge. And my other comment is regarding that, if we were to do that, I know the city probably wouldn't be too thrilled about it, but we could either compromise in something like that and get a lot of work done, or we can just completely disagree and get nothing done. And I can say I'm glad you're sitting in your seats right now, because this is not easy, but that bridge, in my opinion, I've been, advocating for the replacement of this bridge now basically since I've gotten here as the Public Works Director back in 2007, because I identified it right away that this is a big issue for this county. And now we have a potential opportunity to correct it, and I'm a little afraid we might be missing it. Yes.
Oh, of course.
And in looking at this, I mean, it's important to let the voters decide on this ballot question, but I'm looking at this also as a revenue choice as far as between property tax in replacing that bridge or sales tax in replacing that bridge. The fact of the matter is, the bridge has to be replaced. So, you know, your choice of paying it within our budget, which I think will be a challenge to property tax, it will be better to have it paid for by sales tax. I think that will impact, if we do not put it on sales tax, that will impact our investment for the next several years in salaries and parks and recreation and everything else. The fact of the matter is, we cannot just ignore this bridge. We have to, this is the time, the extension of the sales tax is what we have been talking about all along. And again, I remind, this body voted to put that language in our resolution. So,
Commissioner.
Yeah. Anything else, Commissioner?
no.
Okay. Commissioner Cook?
Tom, let's talk about the realities of the bridge, though. The bridge is identified as being a fracture critical, correct?
Correct.
The bridge cost of replacement is $24 million, estimate, or $27 million.
24 is the least I've seen, of which some of those costs have been paid for already.
Taken care of.
Right. But a maximum cost of $24 million.
Mhm.
We have a sales tax currently that is not even set to expire until 2016.
Correct.
If this ballot question were to pass in November, the monies collected would not start until 2016, which means we wouldn't really see any revenue until those incomes start to come in, correct?
Yes.
So we're looking at 2017 before we start to even see revenue from it. Right?
Yes, correct.
It's 2014 now. 3 years. What happens in the next 3 years for this bridge? If we don't have any, there is the possibility that in the next 3 years, we may have to close it due to lack of funds.
I suppose anything's possible, yes. I mean, if we get an inspection report that says your pins are cracked, yeah, that would be what we'd have to do. Now, we don't think that's going to be the case, but we've got painting that needs to be done. We've got the deck that's starting to break up that needs to be done. We've got some, I can't remember the other parts, but the total of 3 or 4 different major maintenance items that we've identified now and in our last biannual inspection has identified about $5 million worth of just maintenance to keep it basically where it's at.
Even if the ballot question were to pass in November, though, there is nothing guaranteeing that the bridge might not have to be closed at some point prior to the construction of a new bridge.
Nothing guaranteeing that, but if you want my opinion, it will be fine in that next 3 years or so. But there's nothing to guarantee it, you're right.
Mr. Ross talked about the weight limits not being honored and that there are people that are abusing that. Are there measures that Public Works can be taking to stop those weight limit violations? Can we weld? I mean, I know that some bridges have bars that go across that prevent large trucks from passing. I know that the Shawnee County Sheriff has talked about enforcement and trying to be out there as much as they can, but it's just the reality is they can't be everywhere all the time.
Correct. We have taken the measures we can so far in requesting assistance from the Kansas Highway Patrol, which they have done as much as they can. They don't have the staffing to have someone there on the road every day. You know, that's about all we can do. Public Works doesn't have any portable scales that we can use. We don't have the authority, Public Works, to stop someone and fine someone. That does fall down to law enforcement. So, but we've made the request and they've assisted us as much as they can.
But stopping the violators would help extend the life of the bridge as well by taking that heavy weight off.
Yes, as I think I described to you at some meeting, how the bridge reacts is like a paper clip. If you bend it once, it doesn't break. You keep bending it, sooner or later it snaps. And that's how this bridge essentially is reacting, where every time a large truck goes over it, it's bending the paperclip one more time. You just never know when that one truck is gonna make it snap, and that's the concern.
I think Ms. Ross might have had a question, Commissioner.
Yes, sir.
I think,
Would you come
Sure.
over, please?
my understanding is that the agriculture can use the bridge as they want. In other words, farm trucks and cattle trucks and that. They're the ones that use the bridge and need it to get back and forth with the grain and so on. Now, maybe that's not true, but it's my understanding they are allowed to cross the bridge no matter what they weigh. Is that true?
I'm not sure, Gary, I'm not sure.
Do you know, sir?
Commissioners Tom Blanc with Public Works, I do not believe that is true.
Yeah,
We believe emergency vehicles are exempted.
yeah, I think in
But that's
buses.
about it.
Yeah,
Public Works doesn't even use that bridge in the wintertime. We
Go around.
go around.
Well, I wouldn't want to suggest that the farmers couldn't use that bridge because it'd make every one of them mad at me. And, that's where a lot of Rossville comes from. But they are using the bridge, and I think they should, because they've got to get, agriculture is so important to that part of the county. And one other silly thing, the users of that bridge are also Jackson County and Potawatomi County. Can they be asked to participate in this, or is it just a Shawnee County issue?
Tom has the answer.
Thank you.
Commissioners Tom Blanc again with Public Works. With that bridge being there on the county line, there is a state statute in which Wabunsee County would share in the cost of the replacement of that bridge. However, that is based upon the valuations of each county. And the difference so what that would end up being basically is Shawnee County would pick up about 95 to 96% of the cost. Wabunsee County then would be responsible for about 4%.
Yes, Commissioner Cook.
Just for, Tom, what was the bridge count? What are, in the last study, what was the daily bridge count?
I don't have the exact number, but I remember I think it was between 3,000 and 3,500, somewhere in there,
Daily?
daily, yes.
And if I might.
Oh, of
add,
course.
I might add that in my going around neighborhoods here recently, that most people have said they don't go over that bridge. I think those traffic counts would be higher, but a lot of people do not go over that bridge specifically because of the makeup of the bridge. I think, looking at this from a transportation perspective too, you close that bridge, you're putting all that highway on all those vehicles on Highway 24. Highway 24 is a 2-lane road that has very small shoulders. In the last couple of years, I-70 has been closed and they've rerouted that traffic over the Willard Bridge through Rossville and onto Highway 24. So from a transportation perspective, this area would be impacted by that, and there would be much more traffic on Highway 24 as well. So.
There was a motion to amend the resolution to include the Willard Bridge. Is there a second? Hearing no second, I will entertain a motion on the resolution.
I will move for the resolution to be placed on the November ballot as presented. Do so with the understanding that the county bridges does not exclude the Willard Bridge. And I would put that forth to the voters, that there is not an exclusion on this for the Willard Bridge. I would also set forth that the voters have the ultimate say. This is democracy in action. If the voters do not believe that this is a ballot question that has merit, vote against it. But I would move for it to be placed on the ballot.
I'll second that. Yeah, this is not easy by any means, and it is up to the voters to decide. I've gotten a lot of emails, people that were in favor of the sales tax extension, and a lot of people that oppose the sales tax extension. And you know what? I tell them all the same thing. I respect your opinion. Talk to your friends and neighbors, and go vote. And I think that's the most important thing, is the voters decide this. So I'll second that, to approve the resolution. All in favor say aye, opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 2-1. Commissioner Bueller dissenting. Next item.
Item 3, consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item 4, new business. A, County Clerk, number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Commissioners, this morning we have vouchers that total $1,283,885.72. The highlights out of those are the Kansas withholding taxes, court-appointed counsel for the district court, holding accounts for the state of Kansas, Blue Cross Blue Shield health insurance payments, Parks and Rec, their vouchers for this term, and the annual cost or to the Joint Economic Development Organization, and finally workers' compensation. Those 7 highlights constitute 89% of the vouchers, or $1,141,827.13. So, but I would move for their approval. I don't find any discrepancies in the vouchers as presented.
I'll second that motion. Motion made by Commissioner Cook and seconded by Commissioner Archer to approve the vouchers as presented. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
There are correction orders today. What we're doing is we are paralleling so these are actual mainframe correction orders, and they have to be used, put both in the CIC tax software and this. So
Okay.
these are, so I still don't know what the new ones will look like, but we will. Paralleling is much better than we know that that the new system is. I mean, obviously you want us to do that to make sure the new system is doing what the old system is doing.
Very good.
Exactly.
Thank you
So
for the
you
explanation.
have something now to approve, if you so desire.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve the correction orders as presented by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B, Public Works Solid Waste. Number 1, consider approval of request to award bid to Potter's Industry for the purchase of 88,000 pounds of glass beads to be used for retroreflective enhancement of roadway paint striping in the amount of $26,312.
Commissioners, Tom Block again with Public Works. We went out for bids for these glass beads, and these glass beads are used in the painting of our roadways. And what they do is, when you put the paint down and you drop the glass beads on, the glass beads adhere to the paint, so that when folks drive at nighttime, the lines and the striping really pops out so people can see them. So we went out for bids. We received 3 bids. And the low bid was submitted by Potter's Industries in the amount of $26,312. We have utilized Potter's in previous years, and they're a very reputable company. So it's our recommendation that we award the bid to Potter's Industries, and the funding for this would come from the Public Works Road Maintenance Fund. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Questions or comments from Mr. Block?
I would move approval of the contract with Potter's Industry.
Second.
Motion made to approve the contract by Commissioner Cook and seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Tom. Next item.
Item C, Health Agency. Number 1, acknowledge budget revisions to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment aid to local grant application for state fiscal year 2015 for a total grant award of $1,143,994, which includes $124,413 not originally included in the grant application. and acknowledge Commissioner Archer's signature to the revised program budgets.
Good morning, Commissioners. Alice Weingartner, Shawnee County Health Agency. I'm not sure if you want to take agenda items 1 and 2 together, since they are collective. Both of these items relate to the same grant, and this is just acknowledging our receipt of this award and acceptance of this award. And I think it's important to note that this aid to local grant funding does account for about 29% of all of the grants that the community, or that the health agency receives overall as well.
I think we can discuss them together, but
Okay.
I think we need a separate vote for each.
Okay. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions. These are ongoing continuation grants that we receive from the state of Kansas. This first agenda item does include the public health emergency preparedness funds that weren't originally in the request that was submitted back in March, because we hadn't been notified yet by the state of the amount that we were receiving. But since that time, we have been, and it's now included in that grant award.
Okay. Are there questions or comments for Alice?
I have none. Move approval.
I second. And that's for item number 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
Item number 1. Motion made by Commissioner Bueller and seconded by Commissioner Cook to approve, I apologize, to acknowledge the budget revision. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0. I'll make a motion to approve the acceptance of the aid to local grant. Is there a second? Motion made to approve by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item C3, consider authorization and execution of contract C-278-2014 with the National Honor American Corps program, which has a volunteer program from Washburn University that offers scholarships to students willing to give time to meaningful, long-term service commitments to the community.
Commissioners, this request that's before you is for us to partner with Washburn University in hopefully identifying students who would be willing to work on public health programs that we have in place. There is no cost for the county for us to partner with Washburn University for these purposes. Some of the items that were noted in the memo where partnerships could be seen is we could provide opportunities for students to help manage and oversee some of our grant initiatives that are taking place. They could coordinate and facilitate activities and initiatives that are tied to our community health improvement plans. They could also work on developing and implementing health education programs for our community members as well. So it would be a significant program and partnership, I believe, for the health agency and for Washburn University as well.
Questions or comments about the contract?
No, but I would move approval of the contract, or I guess not contract, but agreement with Washburn. Anytime we can partner with Washburn, I will support that. So I think this is a good initiative to have that student-led development and development of our leaders. So I would move for approval of the agreement.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Alice.
Thank
Next
you,
item.
Commissioners.
Item D, County Counselor, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-279-2014, amendment of contract with Thomas McGee LC, third-party administrator for workers' compensation claims for a 1-year extension ending July 31st, 2015, with a 3% increase in fees.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jim Crowell, Assistant County Counselor. This item is, as described, a proposed 1-year extension of our current contract with Thomas McGee, who serves as our third-party administrator for workers' compensation claims. The proposed extension does provide for a 3% increase in fees. However, the total annual costs are expected to remain close to the $45,000 in annual costs approximate that we spent during the last 1-year period. We expect claims to continue on a downward trend that they've been following since some significant changes to workers' compensation law that went into effect in 2012. That's helped us along with all employers across the state in terms of keeping those costs down. We recommend approval of this extension. Mr. Ed Reasoner with Thomas McGee is standing up over there. Be happy to answer any questions you might have of him or I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have or provide additional information.
The people I've talked to in the industry have nothing but good things to say about Thomas McGee and their handling of the claims. And so I don't have an additional question, but I would like to make a motion to approve the contract as presented. Are there other comments or questions?
No, I would second.
Motion made to approve the contract by Commissioner Archer and seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Jim. Next item.
Item E, Parks and Recreation. Number 1, recognition of upcoming major community-wide events for the month of August.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Luby, Parks and Recreation. Summer is winding down, but our events are still going in full force for August. The first event, we have a correction on the memo, and I touched on it last month, is the Family Day by the Park in the Central Park Community Center is held tonight from 4 to 8 p.m. Grapevine Production will be playing music from the 60s, 70s, 80s. It's just another example of the communities, the NIAs, and the local groups in Central Park working together to provide a family-oriented event for the whole community. We also have the big Shunda 8K run and 5K walk on August 2nd this week, or this Saturday at 7:30. The event starts at Crestview and uses the Shunga Trail. It's one of our more popular events. We estimate about 150 runners will be participating. New event, we have a ballet for the young audiences will be held at Gage Park in the amphitheater on August 2nd from at 10 a.m. and at 11:30 a.m. And they'll be doing Wizard of Oz characters. The National Night Out on Crime will be August 9th at the Oakland Community Center. There will be free swimming available from 5 to 9, ice cream social, and music from 6 to 8 p.m. Another event where all the NIAs get together in that area to provide a fun evening. We also, that same night, have a big screen under the stars, which is held at the Bettis Family Sports Complex. They'll be watching the movie Kicking and Screaming. It's free. We will have concessions available. So bring your lawn chairs and blankets and come out. It's a great event. Adaptive Recreation is holding their fishing rodeo on August 16th from 9 to noon at the Lake Shawnee West Lake Pond. It's a great event with gearing fishing derby for people with disabilities. It's a great turnout, and a lot of organizations help contribute to that. One of the other last towards the events we have is Dogs Days Out. We do that at the Lake Shawnee Swim Beach, where you can bring your puppy or your dog out and spend the afternoon at the beach. One event that I thought of while we were talking about Rossville, Parks and Rec has a small part in it, but we do have the Rossville Tall Corn Festival, I believe this weekend,
No.
second weekend of August, okay? And it's a super event where I used to work out there, and it's such a fun event to see the whole community come together and have all the events going on for 3 days, and it draws a lot of people from all over Shawnee County. The last event I have is the Silverbacks program, and I have Daryl Stewart, the center director at Hillcrest Community Center. Daryl does an awesome job of working with all the local groups to come up with programs like this, the NIAs and everything, and I just kind of wanted him to tell you a little bit about the Silverbacks program.
Good morning, Daryl Stewart, Shawnee County Parks and Rec. The Silverbacks volunteer group is a volunteer group that has come to the facility, and they offer free dinners to any youth 18 and under. What that does for our community is it kind of helps the families prepare budgets when they can understand through USD 501 that they got a free lunch, and through the Silverbacks program they can get a free dinner. for families, that helps them budget their family expenses, knowing that their children are taken care of for lunch and for dinner. They also, through this program, the Silverbacks, they have they've done a free shoe giveaway where they've given free shoes that they've got donated through Payless and other organizations, and they've also they're also doing a free back-to-school backpack program where any youth that signs up can get a free backpack full of school supplies. And this is at free at no cost to the community, and it costs our department little or nothing. And I do have some information for you about that.
Let's make sure Tim Richard gets a copy of this, if we would.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds like a success story that we need to tell better than we have in some occasions. Thank you, Darrell. Anything else, Randy?
No, that's it. Thank you,
All right,
Commissioner.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Item F, Commission, number 1, consider recommendation of Road Review Committee regarding a portion of Southeast 37th Street in Tecumseh Township.
Morning, Commissioners. Jonathan Brazon, Assistant County Counselor. As you know, last Thursday, we went out and looked at this road, and now we have the report of the viewers, and their recommendation is that the road be opened. The net effect of that is if you approve their recommendation, the road that we saw would become a Tecumseh Township road responsibility. Right now, it's privately owned by the Lake Club. The other effect of that is the culvert that we saw, because of its size, would become a county responsibility. So, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there questions or comments for Mr. Gazan?
I have none. Is the appropriate motion to move, we accept the recommendation of the board? Of
Yes.
the road review? Okay. I'll
Okay.
make that motion.
Second.
Shape up. Motion made to approve the recommendation by Commissioner Bueller and seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
And thank you for everyone that participated in that viewing and the team that worked on that. Next item.
Item F2, update on Heartland Visioning.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Hunter, Executive Director, Heartland Visioning. We have a little PowerPoint that we want to present to you today. Later on this fall, Heartland Visioning will be submitting a budget request to go to PICA, and that will then go forward to JADO, and that for various approval process steps. What we want to do today is show you a PowerPoint that I've been using around the community, but I also want to take just parts of it and point out what we consider some of the items that are really truly tied to economic development, which is part of that package for Go to PICA. Visioning, as understood from the very beginning, but we're talking much more about it so that people can understand it. Visioning is a very complex and adaptive process. It's complex because we really are dealing with change in our community. And if you look back at the start of this in 2008, the reasons why it was started in the community and what still are some of our concerns today. And again, we're working on a city countywide basis. And we have to be adaptive because as we move forward through the change process, we have to be flexible. And so that is why we keep going back to the community to find out what the interests are and make sure that we're on the right track with our process. And then lastly, it takes time, and we have really understood this over the years. And, you know, very briefly, the NOTO project, it's in its 5th year. We still don't consider that sustainable. It is still a growing area, but the realization is some 32 businesses have been added. That increases sales tax dollars, and certainly property taxes have gone up over there. The downtown project took almost 3 years of engineering work. That brought about $2.4 million from the private sector to be used for beautification downtown. We're turning the shovel. We have another 2 years to go on that. And Riverfront, and again, these are 3 projects that came out of the concerns of the community back in 2008, and there have been really good people directly tied to the Heartland Visioning process who have stayed with these projects all the way through. So we could talk about Beth Fager, Hal Gardner, and others with the riverfront, and that has to go through the federal government with the change, and we're still looking at a project that is going to take up to about 219, 220 before we see our final results with that. So it's a very complex process. We understand that. We have to be adaptive and go through change, and the realization that it's going to take us time. The mission has not changed. Heartland Visioning is still staying with the same mission. That is, we want to create a growing, dynamic community with a superior quality of life. And again, this is a challenge not to our politicians. This is a challenge to the individuals who volunteer for this organization. They want to work on quality of life issues. They want this community to grow, and they want it to be a dynamic community. And their interests are to stimulate the economic vitality of this community, and again, to improve the overall quality of life for all of us. What we tell people now is very clear. The position of Heartland Visioning is as a convener. We have wonderful connections throughout Topeka, Shawnee County now, and we can bring people together to do problem solving, to stay on top of issues that are of a concern for the community. So we're involved in public communications. We are involved in action planning to start addressing the various priorities, and then the implementation process that goes with that. And as a convener, what do we want to do? We want to work in a public partnerships. We want to work with organizational collaborations. We will do community engagement and assessment. We'll undertake research when necessary, and we'll also step in and do facilitation work with various groups in order to keep the process going. And I can tell you that the organizational structure that we have really been emphasizing over the last 5 months is really taking hold, and we are working diligently in all of these areas. Ultimately, the result is we do want Topeka and Shawnee County to be a place where people choose to live. We do want this area to be a place where businesses and corporations do want to locate. And ultimately, because there was a concern for trust in our community very early on, and we feel that if the populace has a voice, if they feel they can come together with us at our community meetings, if they feel comfortable in contacting us, if they volunteer for our organization to get themselves involved in the process of visioning, that they will feel that they have a voice, and ultimately we'll all improve our quality of life. So yes, there were 21 public meetings that were held, and that led to some 400 responses. We did data analysis of that during the first quarter. We have working with our management committee. We've come up with 5 priorities that we're looking at over the next 3 years. We have added 30 new members. Now, what I like to tell people is I look around at those 30 new people. These are not people that have been appointed by the corporate head or the business leaders, say, go serve on that committee and you know, do our duty there. No, these are people who have stepped forward and volunteered and want to work on the betterment of Topeka, Shawnee County. And I think that is so essential to understand. These are really great people who want to volunteer to do this type of work. And so we've gone through the transition, we've added 30, and we've gotten them up to speed into the process, and we've now divided them into network teams to begin the work. The work will take place on the following priorities. The dynamic core, which I will talk about a little more in depth here. It's really the dynamic corridor, and I'll explain that. Transportation is an issue, entertainment, parks and recreation, community pride, and services. And what we know going in as we organize our approach to these priorities is you can't do a one-size-fits-all as you start going into these. So for instance, the dynamic core, that's more of an oversight committee that's going to stay on top of that project for the next 5 years. Transportation, Susan Duffy, who heads that community for us, she has some projects. It's going. The bike share program, right now they're hiring a new director for that. That is something that's going to be implemented. So that's a moving forward. Parks and Rec, we like to point out, and I've had a number of great conversations with John on this. Parks and Rec in 2008, we had Shawnee County Parks and Recreation. We had Topeka Parks and Recreation. Now they've come together. John did what he had to do. He had to do internal reorganization, understand the new situation, went out and found a wonderful consultant who helped work on the master plan. And there are a number of components within that master plan that are directly related to Heartland Visioning and the work that we want to do. So here again, a wonderful collaboration that we're working on. Commissioner Bueller is assisting with some leadership in that program. The entertainment and community prides and services, we're looking at those as investigative committees. Vicki Brokey from Topeka Civic Theater and Academy is overseeing our entertainment network team. What challenge I have put to her is we have to pay attention for the next 2.5 years about downtown Topeka. We've got to look at how we keep our parades moving up and down the streets. So the cultural elements are a concern of ours. We've got to make sure that as people come down for activities associated with TPAC, the break room, even Celtic Fox and the office, and the Expo Center. We want to make sure that we understand what's going on there and see how we can possibly help those organizations. And that also includes the Jayhawk Theater, because they're making some changes as well, and I think we could see something very positive come from that organization over the next 2.5 years. Let me talk briefly then about this dynamic corridor, and this is where I really think economic development makes a difference. And also, just last week we met with the city mayors and the township officials from throughout the county. We had some 25 people at a luncheon so that we could be a presentation. And I think the focal point was, as I went through this PowerPoint for them, was simply this. If Topeka improves as a city, if we draw businesses and corporations, if we can improve the quality of life in this city, there are people, when they come to work for new corporations and new businesses here, it's understood, as we heard earlier today, there's some practical things that are just understood. Some people will choose to live in the county rather than in a city environment, and we think that that will help to improve that. And we think that there's offshoots, that you bring one thing in, something else may spawn, and that too may turn out to be an investment into the county as well. So it's very, very important to look at what is going on in the dynamic corridor, and that's 10th Street on the south, Noto on the north, right up to Gordon. And we could actually extend that almost all the way up to Garfield Park, seeing that neighborhood up there, the Neighborhood Association East, which received the SORT grant from the city. There's some $2.4 million going right into that neighborhood directly north of the Noto district. So we have a wonderful committee, and again, these people have volunteered. I met with each one of these individually. First, we brought them together. They had their first meeting last month. Mayor Walgast is playing a real lead on this. You can see that Jim Colson, city manager, is involved. John Knight is going to be at the table. He was unable to join us last time, but he sent a representative, which we're very pleased of. We have representation from Noto, Downtown, Parks and Rec, Visit Topeka, Terry Cook is on that, Riverfront Authority. So what Heartland Visioning is doing, and what I would ask you to think for a second, I don't think there's another organization in this community, because it is not the purview of either the city or the county from a political structure to say we need to look at this in its totality. But it's the citizens who are saying these changes are going on over the next 3 to 5 years, and they are significant changes. The economic changes that can come with the improved downtown, the economic changes that will come if we can finally get parks going on either side of the river and we can correct our levee system and then put in a weir and start looking at having a lake instead of a dry riverbed. The opportunities for Great Overland Station and Noto with the development of a park on the north side of the river, I think are fantastic. And these also coincide with what Barry Feeker is trying to do at the Mission. And he's just introduced that $12 million plan over there. So what you have, just with this committee alone, I'm not saying this is a priority committee. All of our committees dealing with our priorities are important. But this one has such a direct connection with economic development, with the size of the area that citizens are looking at, the concerns that they have, the work that we want to do directly with Vince Fry in attracting businesses downtown will help him wherever possible. What I'm talking to John about and Shelley about, the idea of park development and activities that will draw 1,000 people, 1,500 people into events into this area. And again, I stress the economic value that can come from that amount of people. Certainly up in Noto is an example. Who would have guessed 5 years ago you would have had 2,500 people walking the streets of North Topeka? So we have a solid example, one that is still growing and changing. And that, again, it came from the people. And that's what is so exciting. So this is just one of the major committees that we have that we're very excited about. We think that if we bring people together to work on these, we're going to achieve our goals. There are a couple of other areas of interest: leadership, broadband, retirement, neighborhoods. Particularly, we're looking at the neighborhoods on either side of downtown for further development. I just met with the Neighborhood Improvement Association out at Avondale East and talked about some of their concerns the other night. We do not exist in silos, individual silos. And yes, you can say that downtown was the prerogative of downtown, Noto was Noto. That may be fine for outside of our organization, but internally, we look like this. This is how we're structured. Everything is overlapping. What we talk with John Knight about is not just parks and recreation development. We talk about how it coincides with the development of downtown Topeka, what it's doing with Great Overland Station, Noto, and the Mission, as well as the Riverfront project. So when we bring our people together once a month, we're now sitting down in our priority network team groups, but the ease at which they can get up and walk over to another one, the ease, the simple fact that John is there, the mayor is there, Jim Colson is there, Shelley is there, the communication structure that I think we've put in place in order to understand what needs to happen as we move these things forward. So the belief for Heartland Visioning is good things happen when individuals come together to focus on issues in our community, and not only focus on them, but really to do work that is really going to bring about change to the quality of life. And again, I think the change to quality of life is going to go hand in hand with economic development for this city, and we are really striving to develop projects that relate to these priorities. And so ultimately, what do we hope again? People will choose to locate in Topeka, Kansas. Businesses and corporations will continue to look at Topeka, Kansas and Shawnee County as a good place to locate. And we believe that if we keep this moving forward, our citizens will indeed feel like they have a voice in change in this community. And I think that's the role every politician wants to have their community. We want them to vote. We want them to vote, but we also want them to have a voice in the activities that are going on, and Heartland Visioning can be the vehicle in providing them that voice. And ultimately, we hope that we will all have a superior quality of life. Thank you very much. I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
Thank you, John. I always appreciate your energy and enthusiasm and your track record with Noto. And so I appreciate your coming and updating us. I hope you will come often. I know Commissioner Bueller has been a leader in Heartland Visioning and has made a tremendous contribution to that effort. Do you have any
Good
questions?
job. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Anything?
Echo the same sentiments.
Yeah, I would like to just say one thing.
Okay.
If you have people in your districts, leaders in your districts, that you think would like to work on any of these priorities, what we're doing, I mean, there's 45 of us sitting around once a month on a Friday. But when we first put the teams together, I gave them what I called a general process agenda to look at. And every single team had this question: who else needs to be around the table? If we can double the size of our network teams, we'd love that, especially if we can find additional leaders, people who are interested in any of these specific areas. And so if you have people that you've worked with that you consider are real visionary volunteers, you'd like them to get involved with Heartland Visioning, please let us know their names. We'll contact them and we'll get them on board.
Okay.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, and continue to keep us updated, John. Appreciate it. Next item, please.
Administrative Communications?
Commissioners, Tom Black with Public Works. At last week's meeting on Thursday, I had mentioned how the Northwest 46 and Topeka Boulevard intersection was going to be opened tomorrow. Well, the public apparently couldn't wait. They were abundantly driving around barricades to a point that it was dangerous for our crews. So we got together with the contractor to make arrangements to basically have them work under traffic. So it is open right now. It is open as of Friday. So it's disappointing. It's really disappointing. People don't really know what they're doing as far as putting people working in harm's way, but that's what they did, and so we opened it up, and the contractor and their subcontractors were in agreement to make some few changes to the barricading so that they could work under traffic. So
Okay.
it is now open.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Alice Weingartner, Health Agency. I just wanted to highlight one of the aspects of the family event that's taking place at Central Park today that Randy mentioned earlier. The Health Agency is hosting WIC Fest. This is our second annual WIC Fest. It's a women and infant and children program that we offer. And through this program, we invite families to come out and learn more about that program. We offer healthy food demos, fun activities for the kids. We have the YMCA bringing out their Fitmobile, and there's some health checkups that can be done during that event as well. So we again encourage people to come out to Central Park this afternoon for that event.
And what time again was that?
4 to 6
4 to 6.
is the WIC Fest. Yours is 4 to 8.
goes on to 8.
It goes on till 8. The full event goes on till 8.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you, Alice.
Good morning. I'm Christy Pancras, Director of Safe Streets, Topeka and Shawnee County. And what I put before you is part of a new initiative we are actually launching this morning. It is a social media application or a website that's aimed at parents to help them, give them ideas on how to talk with their kids about underage drinking. In Topeka, Shawnee County, about 1 in 5 youth between the ages of 6th and 12th grade report drinking, and about less than 50% of parents, they report less than 50% of them, their parents have had a conversation with them about underage drinking. And parents are the most important aspect in getting a child not to drink. So what we thought was just to come up with a creative way. Safe Streets Topeka, Shawnee County, as well as Rossville Safe Streets, we're partnering with them to launch this. So all you need to do is to go to that website. You can actually scan the QR code there, and you can generate a meme, a picture. And what we would ask you to do is, if you have a chance, to please do that and help spread the word. This will just help educate people about the importance of talking with their kids about underage drinking. So thank you for your support.
Thank you, Christy. Are there others for administrative communications? Commissioners?
I don't have any today.
Commissioner Bueller?
Just congratulations to the fair. They had a celebration on Saturday night. It was a family fun night, something new they tried, and I believe they had over 600 people who came to that. It was really well attended, very fun event, so congratulations to all of them. I know they were super tired on Sunday, so that's all.
Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
Item 6, executive session.
I don't believe there's a need, so we are adjourned.
Should I get a copy of that?